Welcome everybody to our February 1st webinar, how to engage your board in fundraising without the fear of rejection. Sometimes I always tell people, I don't know if they'd rather have a root canal than raise money, but it's a common thing with boards. And we're going to be talking about that today and kind of getting your own impression as well here. Just a little bit about who we are. DCM Associates has been around since 2005. I was founded by myself after a 25-year career in the hospital and medical world. I was president of a very successful healthcare foundation, raised a lot of money. And we are a team that is now 18 of us. We provide a tremendous amount of executive search for the CEO, C-suite positions, including development officers and CEOs for all the social impact nonprofit organizations. We also have an Institute for Transformational Nonprofit Leadership and Board Performance, where we have really a lot of, and everything we do is extremely affordable. Evaluation tools for CEOs and boards and online courses and assessment tools and a whole range of 360 tools, a whole range of stuff that we have that is part of our team here, and happy to have you here today. By the way, our session is being recorded, and all of you will get the recording as well as the PowerPoint. So I just want you to know that up front here. Okay. Again, a little bit of my background is that I've been in the sort of the nonprofit business for, I hate to say 40 years, but I'll say 38. I had hair in my head when I started, and done a tremendous amount of work across the country in nonprofit space. We work with all types of organizations, large and small. I always tell people, Mrs. Fritz, my 7th grade English teacher, if she knew I wrote 2 sentences together, she'd have a heart attack because I wasn't a very good student. If she knew I wrote 5 books, I don't know what she would think. It's been my joy. I'm going to introduce and let Peggy introduce herself. I just say I'm so delighted that Peggy has joined us. Peggy's from Florida. She's an award-winning philanthropy consultant and just amazing. So Peg, why don't you introduce yourself to everybody, please?
Thank you, Dennis, and thank you everyone for joining us today. I have over 40 years of full-time fundraising and nonprofit management experience. In addition to what you see on the credentials on the screen, I also have a master's degree in philanthropy and development, and I'm looking forward to sharing this time with you and share other nuggets and good information. Thank you for joining us. Now,
well, Peggy, since you said 40 years, and maybe I have to start meeting 40 years myself. I had that board at 30. All right.
Okay, so what I'd like to do now is if everyone can use the chat room box and answer the question, what role or position you play within your organization. And Dennis will put that on the screen. We'd like to know, okay. President, CEO, great. Executive Director, Development, CEO, Coordinator, okay, wonderful.
Specialist, great.
Director of Community Relations.
Community Relationships, wonderful, wonderful. Laura, great. Then I met another person.
Oh, thank you. A board member joining us, wonderful. Founder of an organization.
There you go.
Great. All right, well, thank you. On the screen today, we have today's webinar objectives. We'd like to have you re-examine your approach to fundraising, because you have to understand that people want to give to success, not distress. And people like to give to other people that they know and are familiar with. So we need to move away from what we call the tin cup theory. And we invite people and participants to invest into your organization. So we have to change our mindset for the investment theory of fundraising. And we do that by creating an organizational culture of success focused on achievements and results. And later on, you'll learn the practice of tri-partner philanthropy. Now, before we go to the next slide, I want you to go back to the chat box and answer this question. In 2021, in the United States, how much money do you believe was raised from philanthropic efforts? Philanthropic is non-government. So we're going to give you just a few seconds to decide how much money was raised in 2021 in this country, in the United States, philanthropic. Okay, 1 billion. I didn't see the other ones that flashed fairly quickly. 2 billion, 2 billion. Okay, 25 billion. All right, 800 trillion, 3.5 billion. All right. Well, Dennis, can we move on to the next slide, please?
I can.
No idea. Thank you for your honesty. Okay, in 2021 in the United States, according to Giving USA, almost 485 billion, not million, a billion with a B, was raised. Now, it was raised 67% came from individuals, 19% from foundations, only 4% for corporations, and 9% from bequests, which is only can, of course, come from foundations. So if you take your individuals of 67 and add the 9% bequests, you get 76% of all money raised in the United States comes from individuals. Now that's important. And it's especially important to realize of that amount of money in 2021, according to the Nonprofit Times, 30% of that money came to nonprofit organizations online. So pay attention to your online profile and your online personality and your online reach. So as we go forth, we'd like for you to understand that the vast majority, and this has been since they've been looking at this since the 60s, I believe, the vast majority of money in this country come from individuals. Dennis?
Yeah, just to add to that, I mean, it's for all the clients we've served in the nonprofit space. Oftentimes, people think the money comes from corporations or foundations. Now it does, but you can see here, basically, 20% of it does. But it's surprising to most people that really it comes from individuals or families here. Well, as you know, there's been hundreds of books, articles, research have been written on fundraising. There's conferences every year, AFP, AHP, all over the country. Yet, despite all the knowledge and research, there's so many organizations continue to fail to achieve the level of success they want philanthropically. I think that's a fact. That's why we're here today. I want to explain some of the things that we are, that we can help you with from my own experience, from Peggy's experience here. We also have unrealistic expectations of our board members. I think most times even though people join our board, they might be the president of the bank or community leader or sales executive, whatever. Just because they have that does not mean they are comfortable and have the knowledge about fundraising. It's not a negative, just an observation, okay? And so I always tell people, constantly reminding your board members their role as fundraising is like asking your kids to clean their room. It's really effective. Maybe it wasn't your kids, but not with my kids when they were little here. And I just think that's a reality. That's not a criticism of anybody. We got, 1 million nonprofits in the United States, and we got probably 20 million people or more that volunteer to serve on boards, but it's kind of an awkward situation. I'll explain the emotional side of that here as well. But before I do this and have Peggy talk about the tri-partnership, what I call the three-legged stool, I want to ask you also, go into the chat room for a second and tell us, why do you think, or what's been your challenge at engaging your board to help you increase donors and dollars? What's been the challenge that you've had engaging your board in philanthropy? And in some cases, it may be engaging your CEO. And so if you're just kind of, let us know what you're thinking about. For those of you too that have just joined us, sessions being recorded, you will receive the PowerPoint presentation as well. Right now, we're asking you to go into the chat room if you can and just share if you have concerns you've had about or issues you've had about engaging your board. And if you're not comfortable doing it, then that's fine, but we'll move on, then I'll address that here. So what do we got here? Here we go. Yeah, I think, response is discomfort. And a lot of people just not done fundraising. They haven't had to do it. They rely mostly on public funding and grant funding. It's true. And yet today's challenge is that with state or national or regional public funding becomes less. And there's more reliance upon individuals. And it's a very awkward situation. It's very awkward. But since Peggy and I have, we've been involved in helping in personal lives, and either myself as a former CEO was a board chair and raising a lot of money. I think we can help you overcome that. It's an emotional thing. And as some of you are asking, it really comes down to fear of rejection. And because we think it's about a transaction, about asking, if I ask you to help me for what we need, it feels personal, and we're going to get away from that. So what's good comments. I appreciate all that, and hopefully we'll address all these issues here. And Peggy, start off with the Tri-Partnership of Philanthropy. Okay.
All right, thank you, Dennis. Now, before we move on to the next slide, I want to reiterate something that's extremely important. In order for people to be less fearless, the key ingredient is they must understand their role within that organization. So the next 3 slides are very important. Dennis, there you go. The role of the CEO or the executive director. The CEO is the chief salesperson. He or she has to know what distinguishes their organization from all the others. They build relationships in the community to external as well as internal stakeholders. They are always the key chief communications officers and the chief brand builder, building that positive image in your community or region. And yes, they are the chief fundraising officer. He or she is responsible for their role in cultivating and soliciting donors. But because it is a 3-legged stool, as Dennis had referenced, they need assistance from the other 2 legs. And the next is the role of board members. Board members need to be able to advocate for your mission. Now, what does that mean? It means they need to stand before the crowd and be proud. Stand before their peers and others, friends and neighbors, and be proud that they are on your board. They need to communicate your organization's achievements and successes, and they should, at the very minimum, identify at least 3 prospects, whether they're individuals, corporations, foundations, families, clubs, associations. They now leave the actual solicitation to the CEO and your development team, and the few board members who actually enjoy and are knowledgeable about closing a gift. Now, other roles of the board members of the board include actively participating at special events. Now, what does that mean? That means more than attending an event. That means that if the development officer or the CEO gives them an assignment to say, look, I need for you to go out and say hello to these 2 or 3 people. Or another idea would be how I'm going to see this couple, this new donor at your table tonight. Can you please, at the end of the next day, tell me what you've found out, what you've learned about their interests and how they became involved. So board members are dependent upon staff to help guide through their roles through this process. Also, they are expected to write personal notes on annual appeals, but they need the information from staff. And they always need to give of time, talent, and treasure. So making an annual contribution subsequent to their means is extremely important. Yes, that means 100% board participation. And of course, they play an active role in recognizing and thanking the donors, which is stewardship. Now, the role of the Chief Development Officer or your Director of Development. First, they need to create a comprehensive and diversified fundraising plan that includes, on a 12-month basis, all the different ways they raise money, the activities, what was raised last year, what you're going to raise next year or this upcoming year in this plan, and how it's going to be different. It's important for staff and volunteer leaders to envision their role by viewing this diversified fundraising plan that is written. The appendix of a fundraising plan always should include the case for support, which is simply put, why give now? It also would include any type of recognition opportunities, a 12-month calendar, any position descriptions, and a budget. Then that individual becomes the quarterback of the game plan. And they build donor relationships. They follow through on all the initiatives as written in the fundraising plan. They report and educate the CEO, members of the board, as well as other executive staff in their roles. And yes, they solicit gifts. They are expected to close gifts and to follow up and provide effective stewardship. Dennis?
Thank you. Before I get to this question, I just want to say the average tenure for a development officer, director of development, chief development officer, has been about 18 months or 2 years. And the reason for that is what we're talking about here. Most times people come on happy to take on the job of development and leading the development offer, but they expect it. I thought my CEO was going to help me out, and he or she just stays in their office, so they're not involved. And or I thought the board would help me out, and they're not, and just call me up and say, how am I doing? And I think it's important to this stage here to focus that for it to be successful, it cannot rely on one person, just your development officer. It's not going to be successful. Be limited. For it to work, you have to have this tri-partnership here. It's just crucial. But I do think, as Peggy indicated, that it may go against all the books you've read, but I think you're better off not having your board members. It's one thing to have board members help get a sponsorship for a gala or for a dinner or golf outing or something like that. That's okay. But the individual asking, I think it's, unless they're so experienced, which I would avoid that, and it's going to be a relief to them. As Peggy said, if you just say, could you help me identify in a year at least 3 prospects, individuals, families, corporations, foundations. Now, if you had a board of 10, now your development officer, along with your CEO, now have 30 potential prospects they haven't had before. That creates a winning situation. So here's a question I want to ask all of you. I want all of you to be able to answer this question and have your board members answer this question, and your CEO answer this question, and your development officer. What's the value we provide to the community? What are our top achievements been this past year? And why is our organization worthy of a gift? These are great conversations to have at a board meeting. I have a saying called the 50% rule in board governance, that at every board meeting, on average, besides the agenda items of executive director report, a finance report, development programs and services, have a discussion with your board to engage everybody and make sure everybody has a chance to participate. But those are great questions to ask. So everybody can answer, what is the value we provide to the community? What are our top achievements? And why is our organization worthy of a gift? Now, if there's one or two things you can come away from here today, I want you to understand about, I think, why people give money. The number one reason people give money, they've been asked. It's amazing. I mean, I pray to God a lot, but for philanthropy, you got to ask, whether it's an ask by a phone call, an email, a text, a letter, online, but you got to ask. They want to give. People who are in the ability to give money enjoy giving. There's a joy of giving, like a joy of living, the joy of cooking. They give, yes, to someone they trust and respect. I've had many times when I had a board member say, "Oh, I'll meet with so and so," and oh, please, oh my God, don't have them meet them because they don't respect them. I like them. And yes, they all give to make a difference in the community, whether it's your local community, the national community, the global world. But there are two things that are very, very important from my experience and Peggy's experience of why people give. They give to success, not to the stress. So if I'm going to talk about what does that mean? And that kind of a discussion, be great kind of a discussion for you to have with your board, because we need to talk more about our success, the impact we're having, and our achievements. And last but not least, a small, sounds like a word challenge, but people will give to needs of those you serve, not necessarily your organizational needs. So if your organization needs something, you got to focus it about the needs of those you're serving that you're giving to them, if that makes sense. But those are two things I want you to come over right now, that people give to success, not the stress, and the needs of those you serve. Now, Peggy?
Okay, thank you, Dennis. I want to also touch upon something that Dennis said, and people give to someone they know, trust, and respect. And very often your CEO, as the face of the organization, the chief branding officer, is that person, as well as a high-powered or a long-term founder or board member. So it's important, if you're a development professional, to understand that how well that they could help you identify. And for them to experience your donor dialogue, invite them along on a tour. Now, this brings up the 3 I's of a solicitation, and that is to identify, interest, and involve. Every member of the executive team, every member of the board, your development staff, as well as the CEO, should always be able to identify, interest, and involve. Those at the very simple part are how you get people engaged and interested, how you can help identify prospects, you interest them, and you involve them, whether it's with a tour, meeting a client, inviting them to volunteer, or going to an event together that you're sponsoring. These are the 3 I's of solicitation. Now, I'm inviting everyone now again back into the chat room to answer this question for the benefit of everyone. And that is, what are some of the more creative ways that you feel you can involve and engage your leaders and donors and prospects? I have a few. Anyone?
Yeah, Peg, give a couple.
Okay. For instance, I work with a lot of homeless shelters. And what we do is we invite them for a lunch, a tour and a lunch. And during that lunch, we say, and this is the same food that will be given tonight to the residents of our lodge. Now, if you're working with children, whether it's children with disabilities or in some type of daycare or nursery, invite them to sit down and color with them or play with them on the playground. That type of one-on-one interaction is precious. And for those older donors who don't want to take a tour, or just perhaps they have mobility issues, another good idea that's creative, meaningful, and memorable is to give a piece of artwork. Or if somebody one of your clients went to camp on one of their scholarships they funded, or a campership, then have them write just a few paragraphs to say thank you and what they did, and then take your time to personally deliver it to them, perhaps with some pictures. And if there's so many, you can send this in the mail or you can e-blast it. But remember, slight merits slight results. That means the more time, energy, and effort you give to the 3 I's, the more it comes back. Dennis?
Yeah, before I move on here, I just want to I want you to think about this because we're really talking about the effort that it takes to raise money. Most development officers know what to do, directors of development, chief development officers. Board members do want to help, but it's really very awkward for them. It feels very uncomfortable. It's not they're trained for CEOs. And so I want you to think about this for a second here. I know this is going to sound crazy, but I want you to think about, imagine you have, I'm just making this up, of course, but you have a 30-year-old son or daughter at home. And you say to them, Johnny or Jill, Mom and I think it's time for you to get married. So we want you to go to the mall this weekend and find someone to marry. And you drop your daughter or son off at the mall and they would start walking around looking at Macy's, all these stores here, trying to find someone. It's preposterous. Could you imagine that awkwardness they would feel about where would they even start to ask someone to say hello, let alone to get married? Yet that's how board members feel when we ask them to raise money. It's like, hey, I can run a bank, I can run a company, I can be the mayor, I can be the governor, but ask me to raise money, it's just so uncomfortable. So I want to talk about how to change that process. For so many of us, we think of fundraising as the tin cup theory. And so I was a kid growing up in New Jersey, and occasionally when my mom could, she would take me and my brothers and sisters into New York City bus terminal to visit Rockefeller Center Christmas tree, or maybe see the Radio City Music Hall. And who was always outside the Port Authority bus terminal was this disheveled-looking guy, maybe like me, sitting on a cardboard box, selling pencils in a tin cup. And that's how most of us view fundraising, as begging. We view it as begging. It's a horrible feeling. So the first thing you want to do with a board is move away from that tin cup theory that we need. I need. We got to move away from that because that's not successful. If you walk around with a tin cup and say you don't give to us, our organization's going out of business, you're going to go out of business. So that's the first thing here. But let's transition this for a second here. I'll never forget this experience I had probably about 15, 16 years ago, around the time I started my firm. And I was noted as a, medical center hospital CEO guy, but someone who raised a lot of money. I was good at a lot of things. That was one of the things I was good at. So I had an organization whose mission was to deal with domestic violence and sexual assault, very tough stuff. And it was sort of well-to-do county, clearly. And they asked me if I could do a workshop on fundraising. And I said, fundraising, leadership, governance? They said, no, just fundraising. I said, just, okay, really? And I didn't know anybody in the organization. I think there was one man on the board. I think he worked for one of my board members. So I had this conversation with them. And so I remember asking them to start off the evening. It was a dinner meeting in a restaurant. That was owned by the board chair. Kind of looked like a little bit of a hippie shop with beads when you walked in, but it was a comfortable place. And I asked them, could you tell me your top achievements this past year? And it was quiet for a while. And then eventually, a woman said, we did our budget on time. And I think to myself, wow, okay, this could be a long night. And then another woman said, we always, right? I said, yes. She goes, we only spend like 6% of our money on fundraising. And I'm thinking to myself, wonderful. 2 achievements that, how am I going to make it through this night? If this is, that was actually the answer about what they achieved. And a woman in the back of the room raised her hand and said, Dennis, we do a program called PALS. P-A-L-S. I said, what does that stand for? She goes, it stands for peace, an alternative learning system. He goes, we treat children who've been subjected to sexual assault, domestic violence, so they can have healthy relationship again with surrogate parents, foster parents, biological parents, classmates, teachers, etc. And I'm thinking to myself, grand slam home run in the bottom of the ninth inning, you just won the World Series. And how well did you communicate that? He said, we don't do a really good job. We do a little bit now internally, but not externally. I said, that's why you're not raising money. They had a phenomenal story to tell, and they didn't tell it well. And so it's so important to have this discussion these days about what is the impact your organization is having. It's not helpful anymore just to say how big we are and how many programs we've had and people we serve. But I'll never forget this. And this is, you're going to grab your throat. This has a positive ending. This one story I'm going to tell you here. And this shows you about giving the success and donor values. But they decided to have a major gala in a beautiful facility, all black tie, all fancy stuff, fancy dresses, all that stuff here. And I remember asking them, do you think there's someone who used your services that might be able to tell their story? And of course, the reaction was, Dennis, is all confidential. I don't think so. I said, okay, I accept that, fine. It's always nice if you have someone that benefited from you to tell the story. And then they said, well, I think this woman might be willing to. I said, can you ask her? So she agreed, and we just spent a few minutes with her one day. So they were, having their chairman of the board welcoming everybody, and the silent auction back there, and all the sparkles and cocktails are flowing and all that stuff. And the lights are glowing, and the band was ready to start. I'm going to tell you, it's tough, but it has a positive ending. So the woman gets up and tells about how she first met her husband in high school. He wasn't, controlling or anything that she knew about it, but she kind of he was a little, emotionally controlling with her, but she fell in love and she got married and had kids. But she talked about how, controlling he became, and emotional controlling and abusive. And that's a bit tough. She talked about how he burnt the house down with the kids in it. Now, the kids survived, thankfully. He went to prison. But she said, because of this organization, my daughters and I have a new life. We have a new home. We have a new way of life. We're healthy and safe. I can't thank you enough for what we've done. And I hope you will continue to support this organization today and for the years coming forward. It made a dramatic impact. People in that gala, in that organization, in that town said, this doesn't happen here. But it was judges' wives, police chiefs' wives, teachers' wives, and a couple of guys as well. So it is really, really important to move away from the tin cup to the investment that you want people to invest in your success, not to give to your needs. I can repeat that. You want people to give to your success and not give to your needs, even though you might feel what you need, but you got to talk about your success. Now, there's a term that I just created a long time when I wrote my first book, A Guide to Achieving New Heights, the 4 pillars of successful nonprofit leadership. Because I used to get it all the time from one of my board members, how's the stock price at the medical center doing today? And I know you don't have stock prices. I know most of you are 501c3 organizations. I get that. Maybe a couple of 6Cs if you're a trade association, but I get that. But if I asked you, if you were in the papers that your CFO just was arrested for embezzlement, how would it impact your stock price? Not good. So the question really is, how does your organization communicate the positive impact you are having in the community? How well are you doing it on social media? How well are you doing on your website? Do you have people you serve, regardless of the sector? Behavioral health care, developmental disabilities, education, environmental, judicial, child welfare, theater, whatever it is. How well are you communicating the impact you are having in the community? How often are you discussing achievements and success at each board meeting? I venture to guess not many. Are your board members understanding their role and passion about serving as ambassadors? Do they have on their LinkedIn profile that they serve on your board? On your website, do you show who serves on your board and their position in life? How often do your stakeholders hear directly from those who benefit from your service? I think the more on your website, in your writings, in your reports, I think it's appropriate for the board chair and the CEO and executive director to make statements and conversations. But the more you can have those that benefit from you tell their stories of how it's benefited you, better off you are. You have video testimonies on your website, people giving you gratitude. You talk about donor values, what people value. So that's important to have the conversation about the stock price. A couple of things just to kind of go over, and this is sort of an interesting thing about DCM Associates is not a philanthropic firm. Peggy, in her history of life, has raised a lot of money for a lot of people, but our mission is to help recruit leaders and search and develop board and leadership in our assessment tools, which you'll see in a second, in our retreats and our workshops and all that stuff here. But I was to ask you, what are the organizations that have a culture of success, what do they focus in on? May be surprised, but the number one thing is integrity. Without integrity, you're nothing. Passion, they're passionate about what they do. Passion is contagious. I just, by nature, am passionate about what I do. I was passionate about what I did at the medical center. And I overcame a lot of historical problems at the medical center, bad image in the community, changed all around and raised a lot of money, way, way above goal. Organizations, though, that have a culture of success have this constant quest for excellence. They have an inspiring vision. It's been my experience, and I will admit now for the first time that at least 40 years of experience is 90% of the nonprofits we work around the country have a vision statement, but it's not inspiring. Its mission answers the question of why do we exist? What's our purpose? Vision statement is about where we headed, what's our future direction. It should be short and sweet, should be clearly realistic, credible, ambitious, attractive, putting out standards of commitment, of excellence, but more importantly, be measurable. But I'd ask you, is your vision statement stale? Is it inspiring you today? That's a question. They have strategic thinkers. They're always having innovative thinking on their board, innovative thinking in their management team. They have effective governance, which is beyond the scope here, but we do a ton of work in governance. And yes, they have positive attitudes. Not, yeah, we tried that 10 years ago, it didn't work. We spent a lot of money, didn't work, it didn't work, didn't work. It didn't work, didn't work. And they're focusing on cultivating soliciting, but it's a partnership. But last but not least, they create an organization worthy of a gift. So if you can think about this whole thing about how to engage my board in philanthropy without the fear is teach your board. And for those of you in part of the session, go back and teach your board. Have us do a retreat, a workshop for you about why people give. They give to success, not the stress, and how well do we communicate that internally amongst ourselves. And if we eliminate the idea we want our board members to be asking for money, we want them to help cultivate relationships, they'll be more in line with that. The fear will be over, the fear of the root canal. I have an expression that said people would rather stick pins in my eyes than raise money. So one of the things we hope to accomplish, and we want to open for discussion here, is about how to overcome this fear. I want to say it's as Peggy did so well about the tri-partnership, it's three parties is a team effort. It's not a solo thing. You know, I used to use the word of, how to avoid the fundraising Bermuda Triangle, because it's a tri-partnership. when the development person, and many of you know this, if your board's not active in helping you cultivate relationships, then you're not going to get anywhere. If your CEO thinks that's not his or her job, you're not going to get anywhere. But everyone needs to learn that when people give the success, not the stress, when board members are encouraged to become a part with your CEO and create an organizational culture of success, not just passive board of fiduciary and strategic advisors of saying, all in favor, say aye, but when they own your organization, a sense of ownership, they value, they want to achieve your vision as much as you do. When the fear of asking for money is replaced with a passion for having people invest in your success because you're so proud of it, that your fundraising dilemma and struggle will become a distant memory, and you have created a powerful culture of philanthropy for years to come. I believe this is clearly possible because I've lived it, and Peg has lived it here. Now, I want to open up some questions here, just a couple things here. One of the things I hope you get a chance to look at on our website, DennisCMiller.com, we're DCM Associates. This is just part of our Institute for Transformational Leadership and Board Performance. We have very affordable, inexpensive tools for executive leader board governance assessment. It's all confidential. An annual CEO evaluation tool combined together is $14.50. We have team evaluation tools. We have online courses, certificate programs, coaching courses. We have all kinds of things that we're here to help you with diversity, equity, inclusion, a whole range of stuff here. We also can see we do search. You're looking for a chief development officer, CEO, executive director, come to us. We're a national organization that's locally focused here. And this stage, I also want to say this, Peggy and I are willing, you see and again, everybody on the webinar today will get a copy of the recording and the PowerPoint. You see Peggy's information and my information. Please, we're willing to offer you a free, whatever, 30-minute consultation. Any one of us, you want to reach out to us, Peggy or myself, and have a discussion just to help you out here. Our whole job here is to help invest in yourself here. So I want to see if we can, Peg, we can take any questions from the floor here and see if even the chat or not, but if people can, people have any questions of Peg and I, just either raise your hand or maybe point in the chat room, and we like to have a chance to, I see my friend Julia there, a lot of people, so if we can, don't take any questions for Jay Weissman though, Peg, anybody have any questions of Peg and I you can think about? Chat room, any thoughts, things that we didn't cover, anything new that I hope we left you with one or two tips here today. If you come away with the idea that I think it's just think about it, the tri-partnership. You'll be successful when you engage your board and CEO and the development together as a team. Development is not a department, it's a culture. It's not like, okay, where's development? Okay, it's third floor upstairs behind the housekeeping. I mean, I understand what people physically look at, but it's a culture here. If we don't have any questions, again, Peggy and I want to thank you very much for participating today. Please feel free to reach out to us. We have 2 more webinars coming up this month. One about diversity, equity, inclusion, and one about how the role of a search committee and executive search. So again, there's plenty of free information on our website. We have a resource library, plenty of free articles, blogs, webinars previously. Feel free to reach out to us at any time. And if there's no other questions here, I thank you all very much for joining us.
Thank you all.